Hey everybody, welcome to another Facebook Live on Wednesday, July 20th. I am excited for this topic today because I know that it will impact, I would say so many of you, but I think it will impact all of you, to be honest, because it is all about finding the right pitching coach and just pitching coaches in general, which I actually feel like is a topic that not too many people talk about, and one honestly that I've never talked about before with you. So I'm excited to dive deep into it and get going with this. If you are just joining, I would love to hear where are you watching from right now. Go ahead and put your state and city in the comments. I would love to hear from you and tell you that I'm in Austin, well, north of Austin, in a little town called Georgetown, where it is so hot here, by the way. Like, it is almost 100 degrees, and the feels like temperature is 110 degrees. But I'm happy that you guys are hanging out with me in the AC, unless maybe you're watching outside on your phone or something. But as you guys start to come in, and hey Layla, I think that's how you say that name. Thanks for watching from South Carolina. I wanted to start this with a story of me on my own of whenever I was a pitcher that was about your daughter's age. So I started pitching when I was 8 years old. That was when we went from coach pitch up to a pitcher pitch or player pitch. And at that point, my dad volunteered me to be the one that learned to pitch. And we're at this point, we're not playing travel ball, we're playing league ball. And my dad volunteered me to pitch. So for that first little bit of time, he was the one that worked with me. We would go to elementary school down the street from my house where I went to school at, and there's a little backstop there, and he would just teach me to pitch. And now, mind you, this was in the 90s, so probably I was born in 86, so this is about 94, 95. And there was no internet, there was no YouTube, there were no even DVD players back then when he could just order a how to pitch DVD and teach me to pitch and learn himself. He just went off of what he saw from other pitchers who were older pitchers who were pitching in the same league that I played at, Oaks Dad's Club in Houston. And we did that for about a year and went through season and just kind of figured it out on our own, as I'm sure so many of you guys are doing, without any structured training, without actually going to a real like professional expert coach. And he did that, and my parents did that because we didn't have a ton of money growing up by any means. And we didn't know if, after that first year, if I would want to continue to pitch, if I would like it, if I would show any kind of potential at it. So all of those kind of factored into a decision that after I made it through that first year, where I don't think our team even won any games in our league, that we decided to try to find a real pitching coach. And by I say we, I really mean my parents. And so my parents heard about this one coach. I won't say his name. I don't even know what he's doing anymore, but we decided to start taking lessons from him. He was supposedly had a really good reputation. They were from California, which is like the mecca of softball. His daughter had pitched to A&M, actually won a national championship there, and we thought that he was going to be great. So about once a week for, 12 to 18 months, I'm not sure exactly how many, my mom would, pick me up from school. We'd get in the car, sit in traffic, because we lived like in Houston, and the lessons would be just outside of Houston. So big time traffic in Houston, sit in traffic and go to lessons in this ridiculously hot warehouse. And that was my first ever coach. My first experience was with this coach, and my parents' experience of learning what it's like to go to pitching lessons, to take that little extra step to become a more serious pitcher. Well, after a while, we learned that he was teaching me things that weren't what everybody else was doing. And we kind of knew after looking around that it's like, okay, we're not really learning the right things. I'm not progressing. We're traveling all this distance and going to this hot warehouse, and this is not working for us. So when I say wrong things, He literally taught me to hold a fastball like this. So like with my finger down, and mind you, I had really small hands because I wasn't a very big pitcher girl at all. So this is my fastball grip that he taught me to do. Yeah, and to pretty much pitch a fastball like a rise ball. He also taught me to land heel toe instead of toe heel, which if you've been pitching at all for a little while, you probably know that that's not right. And he taught me to just go with my hips and belly button forward. So to not get open, but just to go completely forward. Another just big time red flag. So again, after 12 to 18 months, my parents and I were like, we're gonna do something different. This is not right. And I went to my eventual favorite, or one, well, I had a couple of really great pitching coaches that I love, but really to the pitching coach that I attribute my foundation, my success, my longevity to, because I went from that worst pitching coach to such a good pitching coach that got me on the right track, that taught me much better, much more correct mechanics, how to think, compete, and feel for myself, all things that I'm going to go a little bit more over today. But that's my story of like when I started the first year, my dad taught me and he had no idea what he was doing. And then the second year, we went to a pitching coach that taught me the complete wrong things, outdated, not how they do it anymore. And we spent time, effort, and money not learning the right way. So honestly, I feel like the first 2.5 years of my pitching journey were kind of wasted time. I mean, you don't ever have regrets, right? But because everything makes you who you are, and that failure and learning what not to do helped us figure out what to do. But that was especially when parents were coming up to other parents were coming up to my parents telling them, your daughter will never make it as a pitcher. And yeah, I would have never made it as a pitcher if I would have stuck with that coach and continued to do the wrong thing over and over again that were outdated and not got me anywhere. So the first question that I wanted to answer today is, does your pitcher need a pitching coach? And the short answer to that is yes. I feel like that. Yes, 100%. If her goals are really big, lofty goals, that eventually, yes, she needs a pitching coach. The things to start answering and to start figuring out does she need a pitching coach is answering this. Does she want to pitch? Does she want to, or do you want her to? Asking, is she continuing to ask you about it a lot? Does she watch other older pitchers and watch games on TV and just look at those pitchers and like idolize them? Does she go around the house doing arm circles or the grocery store doing arm circles and mimicking a pitcher? Is she hanging on the fence watching the older girls pitch, just looking up to them, thinking about what it's going to be like to be them? And if that sounds like your pitcher, then you for sure need to start to consider getting her with somebody who knows what they're doing. And also figuring out, does your pitcher need a pitching coach? You need to ask yourself the question, are you willing to learn as her parent to get her going? Because she's going to need somebody. Pitching is so hard, and you want her to feel like somebody is helping her that knows what they're doing. Maybe that's you. Maybe you have experience as a former baseball player or a former softball player, or have watched enough of the sport that you can at least get her going. But maybe you're somebody that legitimately has never even thought about it before. This is out of left field for your daughter, and you don't really know how much you want to get into it. So yes, either the parent will start teaching their child on their own, or if you're not willing to figure it out on your own, or not willing to learn on your own because you don't know where to start, then, first and foremost, like, just Google my name and pull up YouTube videos. Like, that, that I promise I can be trusted. So especially to get a pitcher going, there's so many, thousands of pitchers that have learned from my videos. And if you're a parent right now listening to this, there is great information, free information for you online right now where I could get you going. So Google my name, pull up the YouTube videos, and that's a great place to start. But I mean, if you don't even want to go that far, then you definitely need to start looking for and finding someone in your area, or enrolling her in my online training, or maybe both. I mean, it just depends on how serious you want to get and how committed that she is and how committed that she is. So, does your pitcher need a pitching coach? The short answer is yes. Does she want to pitch? Are you willing to learn as her parent to get her going? And does she actively try to get on YouTube and learn or ask you to practice? All of those are signs that it's like, yeah, things are getting a little bit more serious. And so that's what my parents really thought about before getting me a pitching coach, is thinking about all those questions. Did I want to do it? Was I wanting to practice? And did I show potential for it? Because you can go an entire year, and that's not to say like if she really struggled the first year. I mean, I wasn't awesome my first year, but potential meaning an investment and hard work into it. And even without knowing exactly what she's doing, is she getting a little bit better along the way? Second question is, when should you start going to one? Like, when is that? And of course, like, that answer is just going to vary all over the place. But if she is an older pitcher, I would say 12 or older and just wanting to get going, she needs to start going to a pitching coach like today, tomorrow, getting very serious about it now, because you're wasting a little bit of time by not doing anything. But maybe she just decided that she wanted to do it. So the older she is, the sooner to get her going with a pitching coach, less time to spare. The younger she is, the more you have time to figure out if it's just something that she is just wanting to do right now, or if it's something that she wants to stick with. I would say that the average age of a young pitcher starting lessons is about 10 years old or so. And ideally, I mean, in a perfect world, that you would go once a week. I would say if you live far from a pitching coach, or financially, if you can't quite commit to going once a week, then twice a month would be good too. Now, here's the thing. It is great to go once a week if she is putting in work in between lessons. So not only do distance and money play a factor, but also knowing that from the time that she had one lesson, the end of one lesson, to the beginning of another, that she is putting time in between on her own. Lessons are not just so that you can schedule some practice time on your calendar and make sure that you're going to go and put in some quality work. I mean, that is half the battle, but a lesson is really to learn what you need to work on your own in between lessons. So that you'll go to a lesson, say, okay, your coach will give you 2-3 things to work on. You put in some practice time in between that, and then go to your next lesson, and you're not working on the same thing over and over and over again. All of these things are things to think about when trying to find a pitching coach for your daughter, and just trying to know if you want to take that next step to get a pitching coach. Because if she's not going to be willing to put in that work in between lessons, then it just really becomes a waste of time. And that's really why you as a parent are so important in her world, is because, yeah, you can go to a lesson once a week or twice a month, but in between there, she needs to be taking steps forward. She needs to be putting in work and understanding what to work on, so that you are not working on the same thing over and over again and frustrating your coach and getting frustrated that she's not moving forward and growing, and maybe blaming it on your pitching coach, when really you should just be probably blaming it on yourself, because you're not encouraging her to put in that extra work, or she's just not wanting to do it. Okay? So that's why it's so important that there is that commitment, and that lessons are used not just as a scheduled practice time, but as a place to go to understand what to work on to get better on your own, and know what you can be doing in between lessons. Okay? So does your pitcher need a pitching coach? Short answer is yes. I think most people, unless you yourself are a former pitcher and can do on your own, or good lessons. And when you need to start going to one, it really varies. But the younger she is, the more time you have to spare. The older she is, the more quick you need to be pulling that trigger. Okay? And it also varies on how much you as a parent want to invest into it, on your own time and effort to research things and to help teach her and guide her, because she needs to be growing. She needs to be getting better. She needs to feel like she is putting in time and investing time into something that she's learning to figure out, and she won't figure it out without support from a pitching coach or you. Okay, so third question, if you're going to a coach right now, or if you go to a coach eventually, how do you know that they're teaching the right things? How do you know that that coach is teaching you the quote unquote right things? And obviously all of this is going to vary. There's no cookie cutter blanket answer for anything in life. And that's kind of why pitching is just so incredible, because you can think and start to feel and understand things on your own without having a completely cookie cutter approach. But a few of the things that you know are right or wrong. Are they paying attention to your daughter's drag? Are they overall paying attention to her leg drive? Are they overall paying attention to her front side resistance? Are they coaching body control and a consistent release without teaching hello elbow? One of the few just all around things that I for sure am against is that hello elbow release that is extremely outdated. Some red flags that I would say are red flags for you to be looking for is that the coach is not correcting a drag that replants. So her foot goes in the air, comes back down again, and she gets that second push. Another red flag is that he or she is teaching hello elbow. Another red flag is that they are not correcting an anchor drag and giving you ways and tools to be able to work through that. Another red flag is that the coach is letting your pitcher fall forward at the end of her pitch and not finish balanced. Those to me are a few just big time red flags that instantly stick out that a coach either is teaching or is not teaching or paying attention to. How else do you know that your coach is, teaching the right things? By just asking yourself and taking a step back and looking into your pitcher and ask, is she getting better every week? Is she getting a little better every single week, either mentally or physically? And look, that's not to say there are not going to be slumps and there are not going to be steps backward. You could have the best pitching coach in the entire world, and there's always going to be those things. So that's why it's important to take a step back. And is she trending up overall? Kind of like a stock in the stock market. There's going to be those ups and downs, but overall the trend is going to be heading up. So is she getting better every week, and is she getting better every month, especially if she is somebody that is putting in the work outside of lessons? Okay, that is a big time question to ask yourself. If she's not putting in the work outside of lessons, then she likely won't grow much. And then you can't put it on a coach, then you're putting it more on your pitcher, on your schedule, on your time commitment to invest into this one thing that's so hard to do, pitching, right? So does your pitcher need a pitching coach? Short answer is yes. When do you start going to one? It will vary, but the sooner the better based off of the potential that she shows and the commitment that she's showing. And if you're going to one, how do you know that they're teaching the right things? There's several red flags that I mentioned. Last thing that I wanted to talk about is just overall, what should you be looking for in a pitching coach? To me, a pitching coach is your right-hand man or right-hand woman in your daughter's pitching journey. That's how I kind of feel all the time for all of you guys, because you're always asking me questions in the comments and in my inbox, and most times I want you to be better because I want to support you and be your right-hand woman in your journey. And I do that without even being with you in person. I can help you significantly. So if you are paying for a one-on-one lesson every week, then this person for sure should be your right-hand coach, your right-hand person that can help you out along the way mentally and physically. But, besides being supportive and positive, which are givens, obviously, right? What are some other specifics? And I have some that I wanted to share to you that you can look for right now in your pitching coach or eventually. Do they ask questions to your pitcher about how she did last weekend? Do they ask questions to your pitcher mid-lesson about what she felt, what she thinks that she needs to correct, what she thinks that she did wrong? Asking questions to me is a must. If there is a coach that you're going to that just talks at you or her and tells her what to do, she's not getting better in her mindset and mentally, very likely, or not getting as strong as she could in that regard. And then if that doesn't happen, then she's likely to struggle in games because she can't think and feel for herself. Another thing to look for is that the coach is teaching body awareness. One of the most under-taught subjects in our sport and within our pitching realm is the idea of body awareness. And that goes along the lines of asking questions, is that coach asking questions and getting the pitcher to think and feel for herself. Another thing to look for in a pitching coach is that you're not just doing the same thing every single time that you go to a lesson. There should be some routine, 100%, but there should be something added, a different dimension that is brought to your pitcher that is pushing her, that is getting her to think or feel different or show her something different. I'm not saying new pitch every single time you show up for a lesson, but that is just trying to get through to her, to get her to feel and do something to progress her forward. Another thing to look for in a pitching coach is that they're finding little wins. Because when you are a beginner or even an intermediate pitcher, and even sometimes as a more advanced pitcher, it's hard to see those little successes. It's hard to see the little ways that you're stepping forward when pitching is so hard and there are so many challenges and failures with it. You need somebody that will point out the little things that they see that you're doing right, so that your pitcher feels like they are having that trend that continues to go up even when they're the most challenged and feel like they're failing and feel like they're really down. You also need, when looking for what to look for in a pitching coach, is that there's somebody who continues to talk with other pitchers and coaches and finds ways to get better themselves, to stay up to date on what is current. They're watching college softball games. They're maybe, educating themselves through my online training or a different online training or a different pitching coach. Like, they are actively working to get better, to keep themselves growing and growing, because if they're growing, that means that they can grow your pitcher too. Another thing is that they are creating milestones and measurements within the lesson. Measurements and milestones are things that are not opinion related. You need those factual things, those milestones that your daughter can work for, whether it is speed or accuracy or strike percentage or spin or whatever it is. They need to have measurements and milestones that are woven without their lessons. I'm not saying to radar every single lesson. I mean, some coaches do, but I'm not saying that's what it has to be. But throughout the year, throughout every quarter, there should be milestones and measurements that are given to your daughter to work toward, to work for. And then last two things, helping her set goals and crush them, by the way. That should also be a part of what to look for in a pitching coach, is that he or she is helping your daughter set goals and crush them. And then finally, that within lessons, this is, I can't stress this enough. Within lessons, there are challenges and competitions that push your daughter. She is pushed to the edge. I'm not saying the pitching coach is over there cracking a whip and just like your daughter is spent mentally, like scared to make a mistake. But there does need to be things that are on the line, because games for your daughter have something on the line, a win or a loss. So challenges and competitions get your daughter mentally stronger, okay? So these are all things to start looking for within a pitching coach, and we covered like a lot within this recording. So if you guys have any questions that are pitching coach specific, because if not, the Q&A can get a little bit out of hand. I'm more than happy to answer them if you put them in the chat. Mine says that she wants to pitch, but when we go out to practice, it's frustration and a terrible attitude. That can also be another time to find a pitching coach, is to find kind of like a pitching coach. I think a lot of times, or I find myself being this, is like a mediator. Because I mean, to say that you are a pitcher and to never have frustration or probably a bad attitude sometimes, like you're probably not really a pitcher, right? Like there's going to be frustrating moments. So a pitching coach can serve as that middle ground to communicate between parents and pitcher, finding those little wins like I talked about, so that you don't end the practice or on your own with frustration and a terrible attitude. Like you start to teach how to move forward as much as you teach how to learn to be a pitcher. You start to teach mentality and how to work together as one unit as much as you teach mechanics of a pitch when you are a great pitching coach. Like that's what it's all about. So if she says that she wants to and will go out to practice, that's a great step, right? So then it's how do we work through the frustration and the terrible attitude and work to become better in those areas, because frustration and a bad attitude sometimes are going to come. This is cool. My daughter's pitching coach is one of her best friends. She tells her everything. That's awesome. That's so good to hear. What do you think on using a tool called softball pitching spinner? Yay or nay? I think that a spinner is a really great tool. It's been around forever. For those who don't know what it is, it's essentially like a hockey puck, but it has the dimensions of a softball. I think that anything that gives you that instant feedback about what you're doing is something that is really helpful. Jessica, you're always commenting such great stuff on my page, so thank you for that. But finding a pitching coach that makes her better, but that she truly likes. I love the relationship that my daughter and her coach have. She was too in her head this past week, wouldn't listen to me, so a quick text to her pitching coach led them to having a conversation that I was not needed in. Yeah, I think that that's great. A pitching coach really should be there to be a cheerleader. I think a pitching coach plays a lot of different roles in a pitcher's journey, and not just one that teaches mechanics, but helps them feel supported and more confident, and like they can always, especially after a hard weekend, go to that lesson the next week or hop into the online training program that I have and find a way to get better and feel like they are going to take steps forward and work on things that struggled the last weekend. Should the coach be giving us specific drills to work on? Ours tells us general things, but not drills. I think that a coach, if you are wanting drills, I think that a coach should help you have drills in between lessons. I'm not saying that like everybody is going to be different. So I think that a coach should really listen and understand and communicate with you about what you need and what you want, and try to guide you to feel good about what your practice structure is in between lessons. I know too that a lot of pitchers who are in my online training programs, like they still will go to their lessons and then they will use my program in between lessons as a way to have structure and those drills and workouts to do in between, so that they are, like I said, making the most of those days in between lessons. And taking steps forward in between seeing their coach. How long do you think we should continue to see a coach? I know everyone is different, but how long do you normally teach your girls? It really is a very different thing. Like when I was growing up, I had, if you heard my story from the very beginning of this live, I had one coach for like 18 months who taught me all wrong. And then I had another coach who was and I was about 10 or 11 years old when I started with this coach, and I went to them until I was like a sophomore in high school, and they taught me the bulk of why I am who I am today with mechanics and foundation and mindset. And then I had one other coach just through the end of high school, and then went to college. So I had 3 different coaches, but the first one I feel like didn't really count because he was teaching me all the wrong things. But I guess he still does really count. So I had 3 from 8 to 18 and 10 years. And I think that each one served a different purpose. Goal is just to continue to monitor if they're getting better and if they're growing. And that's why it's so important to have measurements and milestones, because if you're still checking off those measurements and milestones and growing and throwing harder and getting better spin and having more success on the field, then why fix it if it's not broken? But if you're feeling like you're staying stagnant and plateauing a little bit, and you have been for a while, then I think that it's totally fine to mix things up and find a new coach, because every coach has their strengths. What would you think having a second pitching coach to work with the daughter while her usual coach is away at college? She still wants to go to her normal coach, but feels a connection with her, but we cannot see her very much during the off season. I think that that's great. I think that as long as you're staying consistent and putting in the work and having somebody help her with what to do, then that's great. I think that going to 2 different pitching coaches, like that are teaching like 2 completely different things, is not the way to go. But I think that especially if her other coach is away, and then yeah, or if she's away, yeah. Oh yeah, her coach is at college. Okay. My daughter started pitching at 7 with an amazing pitching coach, super kind, great foundation. We ended up going to a different pitching coach. My daughter turned 13. I found that her original one was super loving, but couldn't push her the way she needed. And I think my daughter got too comfortable. I think that that's a really great summary. I think that every coach and every person just has strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, has different ways of communicating, can bring different things to the table. And so that's why, like, when somebody is so like, they go to a pitching coach and like, oh, I can't learn it, I don't want to hear anything else, I don't want to try anything new, I don't want to go to a camp or a clinic because I'm scared they might, teach me the wrong thing. Like, I don't think that's the best way to be at all, because when you are open-minded and coachable and can hear from different adults and different coaches and pitchers of different ways to do things and try things and see if you like it, that's to me when you have the most growth. Because every coach, every pitcher that coaches now will have their own strengths, and your daughter will be able to learn from them. If you have this tunnel vision that there's only one way to do things, then that's when your daughter starts to learn not to be coachable, not to try new things. And just like trying new foods, like, you can try a new food and like it like 5 years after you tried it the first time and hated it. Like, you hear things differently the older that you get. And so I think trying new things as much as possible is always a win. Thank you, Eddie. My 15-year-old daughter has been pitching for 5 years. We loved you calling all the live games. You make your day. Oh, thanks so much. That's so nice. I wanted to find, I have this as well that I wanted to share with you. 10 things that helped me become a D1 pitcher that you guys can go to and sign up for and download right now. When I look back to me growing up and the things that my pitching coaches taught me, I mean, I kind of narrowed it down to 10 things that I know helped me in the long run that you guys can implement right now, no matter how old your daughter is, no matter how old your pitcher is. 10 things that could affect her journey, like, right now to this day. So that is for you. And then also, like, if you are a parent who works with your daughter, then you are a coach, even if you don't have a coach in front of your name. And so I also have coach training that just implements and helps guide you through a bullpen, what to look for, mindset, mental toughness, challenges and competitions, And I just put in the comments a link to the wait list for my coach training, because you don't just have to have a coach in front of your name or be a professional pitching coach to be any kind of pitching coach at all. Like every parent, it seems like you are probably a therapist, a psychologist for your pitcher, their actual parent, and you're like one of their pitching coaches too. So being able to have tools and ideas to help your pitcher, like through that frustration and the terrible attitude that your pitcher is going through. I mean, the more that your pitcher feels like you are investing into knowledge of pitching and something that is just so hard, the more that she's going to trust you and listen to you and grow in between those lessons that she's going to, or maybe she doesn't go to lessons and you just work with her. But the more knowledge that you have and the more prepared that you are, the more that you can help her outside of pitching lessons and outside of games too. So if you guys have any further I love this conversation, but if you guys have any further questions about pitching coaches in general, you can go ahead and put them in the comments. Last week, and you can still find this on my page, we talked about the importance of a fastball. And if you are here for this training and want to go to look up that training, it was very similar to this, like just covering all the different dynamics of why a fastball is important. If you are ever too old to throw a fastball, what mistakes and different places that your fastball is missing can tell you about your mechanics. So you can go and you can scroll down a little bit, and I have a training for that too. So next week, I've been doing this, every Wednesday at 2 Central. Next week, I'm going to have a little league game at this time. So I'll probably push it to Thursday because I have some little league softball games coming up for the regional in Waco. And then I'll head to the World Series in Greenville, North Carolina later in August. But this has been a great July. I've been working hard on a lot for some things that I have for you guys coming up, including an open enrollment for my pitching training, which I'm really, really excited about and get really excited about because it only happens 2 or 3 times a year, and that will be happening in August. So thanks for spending time with me. If you guys think of any other questions, go ahead and put them in the comments and I'll try to get them later. I hope you guys all have a great day and talk to you soon.